Hello again. In both Britain and the United States, school children of African and Caribbean heritage tend to do less well academically than white pupils, a situation which continues at university. Black students tend to graduate with lower degrees than white students. Two things are invariably blamed for what is sometimes called the attainment gap. One of these is racism on the part of teachers, lecturers, and other staff. The other is poverty. That there is an association between poverty and poor school results is indisputable. Whether it causes failure at school is less clear. Great efforts have been made to eradicate racism at schools and universities, and the idea that this is to blame for low SAT scores in the United States and poor A-level results in Britain is dubious. I want to think about another factor today which may be overlooked, and that is the pernicious effect of anti-racism as it is practiced in modern society. Critical race theory and anti-racism in general hold that when black pupils are excluded from school or do badly in examinations, it is somebody else's fault rather than their own. Racist teachers suspend black children more frequently than white, and they don't put as much effort into teaching them as they do white pupils, allegedly. White society is also to blame because they come from poor homes, which is due to institutional racism working to prevent their families from getting on and having the good things that everybody else has. This is a very different point of view from the average Chinese or white family. There, the child knows that if he does not do well in his exams, his parents are likely to blame him for not studying hard enough beforehand. If he is suspended, then they will usually be cross with him for mucking about at school. See the difference there? Try and think about the effect that this mentality is likely to have on the school pupil. If the system really is weighted against him by racism, then he might think there's little point in studying hard. A better idea would be to fight against the system. After all, your parents will back you up because they too feel that failure is caused by racism rather than personal laziness or perhaps being too ready to argue with teachers and to disrupt lessons. For a practical illustration of where this leads and the terrible effect which it has on black children's prospects, we need only look at the events at the London school called the Pimlico Academy a couple of months ago. The school tried to enforce a uniform and a rule about hair length. They also decided that flying the Union flag above the entrance would act as a unifying influence on the pupils who come from various different backgrounds. This led to the pupils pulling the flag down and burning it as a symbol of colonialism. What would have been the reaction of the parents of white or Chinese children to an act of vandalism of this sort? Most would have been mortified that their children could behave like hooligans in this way. Not so the black parents who spoke to reporters and told them that they supported the actions of their children and that the school was to blame for what happened by flying the flag in the first place. Some of the pupils at the school complained in a letter that there had been no mention of Black Lives Matter during assemblies and that this was racist. The history curriculum displeased them too because it was mainly white kings and queens and they didn't see enough black people in the history lessons. Again, lots of parents supported their children in these complaints. One cannot help but wonder why Chinese pupils never seem to carry on this way, carrying out acts of vandalism and moaning that there are not enough Chinese people seen in their history lessons. What do you think that the parents of Chinese pupils would be saying to their children under such circumstances? I doubt that they would have been encouraging them to wreck their educational opportunities in this way. Because make no mistake, that is what those black pupils and their parents were doing. They were so busy complaining about the history curriculum, one wonders what their GCSE results are going to be like in that subject. Perhaps not as good as the white pupils who just get on and study their lessons and do their homework, I imagine. In other words, while white pupils, Chinese pupils and Gujarati Indians are studying hard what they are told to study and avoiding getting into trouble, many black pupils are being urged to fight against the system because it is racist, and because until it has been dismantled there's no chance of their getting on. This leads to conflict with teachers, of course, and a disinclination to study what everybody else is studying. Why bother? Institutional racism will stop them getting a good job even if they do well in their exams. A generation of young black people are thus being denied educational opportunities not by an uncaring and racist school system, but rather by their own attitude, and also the attitudes of their parents and other relatives. This is a self-perpetuating situation because, of course, the more they argue with adults and fight against the system, the less likely they are to get good exam results, and the less likely, in consequence, are they to get decent, well-paying jobs, which would allow them to become socially mobile. Meanwhile, the white and Chinese pupils are beavering away, encouraged by their parents to put their heads down, behave themselves, and to do their homework. Right here is at least part of what is preventing young black people from getting on. It is critical race theory which is to blame for much of this, by promoting the idea that so much of what goes wrong in the lives of black people is the fault of white privilege. A little less victim mentality and a bit more rolling up their sleeves and getting to work like everybody else would make a world of difference to the outcomes and life chances of young black people in Britain and America.